How's it going, everybody? My name's Cal, and today I've got for you what I believe to be the best PvP build for both PC and console. I'm going to go through each piece of gear, taking you through each major and minor attribute, telling you why you might want to go for those, where you might want to switch them out if you're on PC or console, alternatives that you might want to go for, because this build is pretty much a blueprint. But if you stick by the major and minor attributes and some of the gear pieces that I'm going to go through, this build is going to perform so well for you in PvP encounters. I'll then take you through my weapons, each weapon mod, and then we'll go through talents, and then at the very end I'll throw over some gameplay so you can see this build in action. For those of you that watch me on Twitch, you'll know just how well this build performs. So without much further ado, let's jump right into the build. So as you can see, it's a 4-piece high-end, 2-piece exotic, so essentially a hexo build. My chest piece is a vigorous chest piece. It's rolled 1249 firearms, so pretty good. And then into that I put a 266 firearms mod with 3% skill haste, and I also put a 263 firearms mod with 3% skill haste. Major attributes of 16,500 health and 8% skill haste. These are two attributes that on your chest piece you really do want. Ammo capacity as a minor attribute is preferred. You don't need to go vigorous. I tend to run vigorous because I run as part of a group, so getting that overheal from my healing skills and other healing skills is really good, and sometimes in some encounters it can be the difference between you dying and not. So again, if you're in a group, run vigorous. If you're not, maybe look at running a Barrett's chest or maybe a rapid chest piece. Rapid is bugged at the moment, but it is hopefully going to be fixed in the coming weeks. Onto my mask, we have a refresh mask. That's rolled 1257 firearms, so again, pretty decent roll, and inside of that I have a 262 firearms mod with 3% skill haste. As it is a refresh mask, when I'm in my last health segment and I pop my first aid self heal or I pop a medkit, I'm getting a 30% extra heal, which again in PvP, in my opinion, is just too strong to turn away. You might want to run Tenacious Mask if you just bothered about pure damage output, but having that extra 30% heal, I believe it comes in so clutch in so many situations. So that's why I'm running refreshed. Major attribute, you absolutely want crit chance. 4% is the max. I've got 4% on this mask. And then as a minor attribute, you ideally want burn resistance. I've not been lucky enough to get high enough firearms roll with high enough armor with crit chance and burn resistance, so I'm going with what I've got right now, but the ideal would be firearms, crit chance and burn resistance. My knee pads, be no surprise, Shortbow Championship knee pads. They're the only viable PvP knee pads in the game. If you don't have them, it's not absolutely detrimental. You could run any other knee pad, but you definitely want to go with these rolls if you can. So I've got them rolled into firearms, 1204 firearms, and inside of that I put a 261 firearms mod with again 3% skill haste and a 6% first aid self heal mod, just to give my first aid self heal that little bit of a buff. Major attributes of health, again you want to try and roll health as a major attribute for this, because we're not investing much into stamina. We want to get our toughness up to around the the 300,000, and maybe a little bit higher if you're on console, but I like to be between 290 and 300,000 on console. There are minor attributes you absolutely want: burn resistance, bleed resistance and shock resistance. So these are what I consider to be my god roll Shortbow Championship knee pads. The only way they could be better, in my opinion, is if they had a little bit more armor. But regardless of what knee pads you're putting on, if you don't have the Shortbow ones, try and get burn, bleed and shock resistance. As I said a little bit earlier, the Shortbow Championship knee pads are best in class for PvP. There's no doubt about it. There are no other viable knee pads. The talent on Shortbow Championship knee pads, fuse time on grenade is reduced to 0.2 seconds. That just makes it so hard when you're throwing out nades and throwing them to CC oncoming players. It just doesn't give them enough time to, most of the time anyway, to get out of the blast radius. And if you're throwing a shock or anything like that, that surprise element sometimes can be the difference between you winning that encounter or you losing that encounter. I'll take you on to show my backpack. My backpack is a specialised backpack. This is the only piece of gear that I have rolled into electronics. 1232 electronics, and inside of that I got a 262 electronics mod with 3% skill haste, and then inside of that I also have two 6% first aid self heal mods. On the backpack, on PC anyway, I would certainly look into rolling health on these. I've got about 13,000 health, which I think is getting up there towards the max for the major attribute, and then I have a minor attribute of burn resistance. I've got this here because I don't have it on the mask. If I had it on the mask, then I would probably look to roll ammo capacity here. Undecided, you know, when I get a good enough mask, I'll see whether I feel a difference. But so long as you've got at least your chest or your backpack rolled with ammo, you should be more than fine. I've gone specialised, so it adds 200% of firearms and stamina to skill power. Just helps me get my skill power up a little bit further, which makes my heal do a little bit more, makes my pulse do a little bit more. I don't think there is a more viable backpack. If you are on console and maybe you've got another item that's rolled to stamina, you might want to roll this health aware and go with stability, because I know stability is an issue when I play on Xbox. If not, and you're comfortable maintaining some control over the recoil on your weapon, then I believe best in slot here is health. Gloves, it's just a staple part. It's the reason that you run a Hexo build. It's the Skull MC gloves, so damage is increased by 16% when no set bonuses are active. So essentially, because I'm not running any set bonuses, so for example Striker, Nomad, Sentry, or anything like that, I'm getting a flat across the board 16% buff to my weapon damage, which when you're in a PvP engagement and you can't rely on landing those striker stacks, for example, or you can't rely on getting your sentry stacks off, or any other gear set talent, 16% flat unconditional damage is in my opinion best in class for PvP. Major attributes for these is just under 1300 assault rifle damage. I can't seem to get it above 1300. I think it can roll as high as 1330, something around there. But 1300 is not too bad. I've got 5% crit hit chance and I've got 15% crit hit damage. Now, possible improvement for these gloves would be to roll away the crit hit damage and get skill haste. And I'll go into detail a little bit later on why you might want to do that. As of now, the best pair of these gloves in terms of pure damage for me is crit chance and crit damage, but if you want to forgo 15% crit hit damage and get an additional I think it's about 9% skill haste, you could roll skill haste instead of crit chance. Don't do it the other way because you do need this crit chance, but I did want to point out a possible alternative to this build. My holster, Nimble holster, no surprise. You guys who watch me on stream will know how much I love Nimble. Pretty decent Nimble holster, 950 armor, 1267 firearms, 1203 stamina, 1239 electronics. So it's got a major attribute of crit chance. In my opinion, you do want to go crit chance here. You could go health, you could go skill haste, you could go reload speed. But for this build to work as well as it does, crit chance is really a must. But if you're struggling or you're putting this build together slowly and over time, you don't manage to get crit chance, try and look for one of those others. Probably I would recommend skill haste, but again you could go health or reload speed if you really needed to. Inside of that I got another 6% self heal mod. That just gives my heal that little bit of extra buff. So that's the build, but as you'll know, the build tends to go in tandem with the weapons. And then there's the talents, so I'll take you through my weapon. I'm going to go through my primary because that's what I use most of the time with this build. If you did want to go with a secondary, go with an SMG or potentially go with a sniper rifle for those long range encounters. If you do, just spec for best in class for an SMG or a marksman rifle. I will take you through my my primary. So my primary is a lightweight M4, 25.2% base damage before I proc competent or any of those other damage increasing talents, and of course it's rolled with a depth. This has been a talent that's been sleeping. It's I think it came to light about a couple of weeks ago that the depth can stack up to 5 times. As soon as I heard that, I was like, okay, well I can make a viable assault rifle build. I can get enough skill haste, and that's where all that skill haste that we've been speccing into when our gear comes into play. So with Adept, using the skill increases your critical hit chance by 7.5% for 15 seconds. Now because it's 15 seconds and because we've got so much skill haste, if we time our skills correctly, so if I proc a pulse, I'm getting 7% critical hit chance, and then if I proc a heal, I get another 7.5%, and then so long as I can time those correctly, I can maybe get another one in, which gives me another 7.5%. And before you know it, I've got 22.5% crit hit chance, and that's comparable with an SMG. At that point, I'm taking advantage of the high damage of an assault rifle, and then I'm getting more damage from competent, which I've got rolled here. So again, weapon damage is increased by 10% for 15 seconds after using a skill. So again, once I've procced a skill and these two are active for 15 seconds, I'm getting a hell of a lot of extra damage when you consider the crit hit damage that we're also going to spec into on this weapon. And then as my other attribute, I've got responsive. You might want to go with other talents here, but I tend to be up in people's faces a lot of the time. Not doing the chicken dance, to be fair, but I do tend to get closer to the action when needed. And when I'm getting within 10 meters of the target, I'm getting extra 10% damage, which it all stacks on top of each other. So when we're getting all that extra crit hit damage, the damage potential of this weapon, as you'll see in some of the clips later, is it's pretty impressive, if I do say so myself. Mods that I've got on here, so this is where it would normally differ, and this is where I believe it is console friendly. We're not going for headshot damage, or certainly not in the way that we would normally by using a 12-time scope or an Omega rifle suppressor. What we are going for is crit hit damage and crit hit chance. So I've got a pro red dot sight on this, 18% crit hit damage, 3% crit hit chance, and 6% headshot damage. My muzzle is a crit hit damage muzzle, so again, we're not going to headshot damage. I've got 90% crit hit damage, 3% crit hit chance, and then optimal range. That optimal range, you could, in theory, flip that out for another attribute if you wanted to, but it actually does. I find it does help in some longer engagements. And then my underbarrel, I've got crit hit damage, accuracy, and reload speed. You could again trade off accuracy here for something else. I do like the added reload speed, but certainly you definitely want crit hit damage part of this build. And then I have an extended mag, 121% magazine size, 4% crit hit damage, and 3% crit hit chance. I don't believe there's an alternative for this build. You could, if you wanted to, go with some other attributes, but in terms of what makes this build really strong is the amount of crit chance and crit damage that we've got. So yeah, roll into magazine size, crit damage, and crit chance. So that's the weapon. It's really hard to get across how important Adept is. You could, in theory, go with other talents here, so long as you can get Adept and so long as you can get used to pulsing or healing or using another skill just as you're about to engage, because that extra crit hit chance, tanning with all the other crit hit chances that we've got on the mask and that we've got on the holster and that we've got on the weapon mods, just makes this build like so strong. You don't have to aim for heads. You can literally body people. You can hit them in the knees and the feet, and the amount of damage that you're outputting, I think it surprises a lot of people, certainly in those close quarter engagements where people aren't expected to hit headshots, and you can still hit body shots relatively easily. I'll go through my talents then, like I say, I'll throw in some gameplay, but you do want Adept, and ideally you do want competent and responsive. But if you are building this and you're building it slowly and you don't have the weapons, you don't have the god rolls, absolutely get Adept first and then work on the others. That would be my advice. So for my skills, those who know me will know that I'm a pulse and heal fan. I tend not to run any other skills because I like to be mobile. I don't necessarily like to be dropping something on the floor. I don't like to be placed in a turret and then try to move around that turret. I don't like to be tied to smart cover. So yeah, I go with pulse and heal on pretty much all my builds. This works really well with this build, to be fair, because of the low cooldown on the recon pack pulse mod. It's cooldown in 26.4 seconds. I'm constantly proccing that Adept on the assault rifle. With my skill power, the buffs that it gives me, they're not bad. 15% crit chance and an additional 15% crit hit damage, and it lasts. It pulses people for 20 seconds. It's quite good, and it does in my opinion really complement this build. It keeps you mobile and keeps that crit hit chance up, which in turn, just the damage just goes insane. Because we're not having to land those headshots, as I said before. For my heal, I'm running Overdose. Generally, when I'm in a group, I will run Booster Shot. It cools down quicker than Overdose, only a little bit. But when I'm running solo, I will tend to run Overdose, just because of the amount of healing that it gives me. But again, in a group, definitely opt for Booster Shot. The extra damage that you're going to get, and the extra resistance that you're going to get by using this. It can, if you're running with a healer, it can literally make you invincible. Alternatives would be, you know, defibrillator again if you run as part of a group, help get your teammates up a little bit quicker. But in my opinion, solo run overdose, in a group run booster shot, especially if you've got a healer. Talents. So again, I'm going to take you through why I like these specific talents, but I'm also going to offer up some alternatives. So I tend to go with the strike back, so reach low health to reduce active skill cooldowns by 20%. So again, when I'm getting low in health, that just reduces my cooldowns even further and brings my heal back and my pulse back even quicker. Alternatives that you might want to go for would be maybe critical save. If you run as part of a group, run with combat medic. But when I'm running solo, I tend to go with strike back. Again, if you've seen me on stream, you'll know that I love tactical advance. I love, you know, cover to cover in this game. I know a lot of people will tend to chicken dance around the map. I tend to work from cover to cover. So when I do a cover to cover move, I'm getting an extra 2% weapon damage for every meter covered for 5 seconds. You know, and that can be the difference between, you know, melting somebody down in a couple of seconds and not. It's a little bit harder on console, so you might want to go with you know, another attribute. You might want to go steady hands on console. You know, so when you are in cover, you get an extra 25% reduced recoil for 10 seconds. That might be certainly more viable than going with tactical advance on console. I also go with precision, so headshot a hostile to pulse them for 10 seconds. So when my pulse is not available or someone's just concealed, if I can headshot them, then I'm getting the, you know, the base attributes of my pulse for 10 seconds. And again, that just brings that crit chance up and that crit damage up, which allows me to do a little bit more damage. You could go with maybe one is none. Or go with, you know, another attribute in the medical column. So, you know, if you went with critical combat medic, you could also go with critical save. That would be totally viable. Again, because of my style of gameplay, I've gone for precision, but it's not the be all and end all of this build. You could absolutely switch that out to something that complements your gameplay style. The nice thing about this build is, you know, beyond you know, needing to spec into the crit chance and crit damage, in terms of talents that you need to use, you know, it is up to you. And then I've gone with on the move. Not as strong as it used to be, but if I can kill somebody while moving, try to do, you know, even if it's just the last couple of shots, try and strafe left or right. Incoming damage is reduced by me by 15% for 10 seconds. And again, that can be just the difference of getting in and out of combat and into some cover while I wait for my heal to come back, for example. Again, not key to the build, so feel free to play about with this and you'll run something that complements your playstyle. But I've gone with on the move. So that's the build, but again, it's half the story. I'll very quickly go through my character sheet and then I'll throw it at some gameplay. As you will have seen when we were going through the build and going through the weapon, crit chance and crit damage is the big part of this build. It's what we're specking into. It's what we're aiming for with this build. So if we look at my crit chance with my assault rifle, without any of the buffs, without adept, without pulse, I've got 22.5%. So again, if I can stack 2 to 3 stacks of adept and getting another 22.5, so that would take me up to 45%, and getting pulse on top of that, which I think was about 15%. So at that point, we're at crit chance cap. You know, there's no point in investing any more in crit chance because, you know, it's not going to go any higher. If you're running with somebody else who's maybe a tactician in your squad and they're running pulse, you could go with a different skill maybe, because if they've got a really strong pulse, that's just going to throw your crit chance up to cap again, and then crit hit damage 100%. So, you know, basically when I'm at crit chance cap and I'm getting a critical hit, I'm getting 100% extra damage, and I'm still, because of the native headshot damage that you get with an assault rifle, I've still got, you know, a fairly respectable headshot damage amount. It's not, you know, highest. It's not as high as it would be if you're specking into, you know, a 12-time scope or an Omega rifle suppressor, but it's still pretty good considering we've moved everything into crit hit chance and crit hit damage. All weapon damage bonus is 16%, so from the skull gloves. A little bit of reload speed bonus, not a lot, certainly not as much as my other builds. And then assault rifle damage bonus from the assault rifle damage buff on the gloves. The skill haste at 23%, and while not the highest, I found this to be the good balance between damage and getting my skills coming back quick enough. If you're running with somebody who's got a really strong pulse, then you could forgo the crit chance on the holster and roll that to skill haste. And again, if you're finding that you're maintaining enough damage with all the other buffs, the weapon that you've got, You could potentially replace the crit hit damage on the gloves with more skill haste, and that would just bring those skills back so much quicker. 23% is what I found to be like a happy medium with this build, but invest where you want to invest in terms of this build. If you want more skill haste, replace it on the gloves with replace the crit hit damage on the gloves, and if you've got enough crit chance from other members of your team, pulse, etc., then replace the crit hit chance that you've got on the holster with skill haste too, and that'll just make your skills come back so much quicker, and again allow you to proc adept more and more and more. Survivability, so max health of 197, toughness of 291. On console, I would potentially invest maybe one item into stamina, or maybe switch out some of the mods for stamina mods with skill haste, just to give you the extra bit of toughness. On PC, I find 290 to 300 to be just about right, and I've got 32.8% armor. And then obviously all my resistances. Those are going to go up and down depending on what you invest in. I've got a reasonable amount of burn resistance. Doesn't really matter with Seekers at the moment because they seem to be a little broken. But when they're brought back in line, that burn resistance, that bleed resistance, and that shock resistance is going to be really good. So that's about it for the build. The one thing I will say is give this build a try. I don't know whether you can hear it in my voice. Like this build, I really like this build. It performs really well on console and PC. Maybe make a few tweaks to the build on console, just maybe extra stability or a little bit extra health. It's entirely up to you, but the build itself, because of the crit hit chance, the crit hit damage, works really well. And it's not hard to build. You're looking at so these are 2 exotic pieces. These are going to be the hardest that you got to get right. So it might take you a while to get some knee pads and some gloves. But getting a vigorous chest or a mask or a specialized backpack or a nimble holster, that's not going to be too hard. Just have a look, play about with it. Even if they're not god rolls, just try and find rolls that have those major attributes that I've said are important. And lightweight M4, there was a blueprint a couple of weeks ago. Just roll one with a depth and then work up towards those other attributes. It really is a great build. Please do try it out, and let me know down in the comments how it worked for you. If it was good, how you found it, what improvements you made, what you decided to roll elsewhere, which other items you decided to go with instead of maybe refreshed and things like that. I'm really interested to see where you guys take this build, because it can be adapted to suit different playstyles and different platforms. So yeah, I'm going to stop rambling, but do let me know down in the comments what you thought about this build. Just before I throw it over to some gameplay, I want to thank everybody that follows me on Twitch and Twitter. The support these last couple of months has been absolutely amazing. It's gone to a level where I never thought I would be. It's so quickly in time. And yeah, I just thank you guys. Really appreciate it. If you did like this video, please feel free to leave it a thumbs up and a comment down below. If you did not, also leave me a comment, tell me why, because that'll help me improve for next time. If you like my content and you've checked out my other videos and you like what I'm doing, then please subscribe to the channel. It all helps. Right, that's enough of me. I'm going to throw over some gameplay right now. My name's been Cal. You guys have been absolutely amazing. Thank you again for all the support so far. Long may it continue, and yeah, enjoy the rest of the video, guys, and I will see you guys next time.
Neutral. Bravo's
Good.
now neutral.
Flyer tactical boost is now available.
Ja, guarda, non voglio.